if you look at how Midsummer Night's Dream, the events that take place, like what they must have felt like to some of the principal, I guess, mortal characters in that story, it's like, oh, that definitely feels like a very strange hallucinatory fever dream.
Hello everyone, John from Gaming in the Wild here, and I've got a game developer interview for you today. It's with AP Thompson, the double Seamus McNally Grand Prize winning developer. He worked on Consume Me, and most recently he released the very intriguing, story-led puzzle game Titanium Court. It was a fun half-hour conversation, and the interview touched on lots of interesting things, like how it feels to release an indie game in 2026, the game's unusual color palette, its psychedelic story, and also the fascinating shape of the New York City game scene. I hope that you enjoy it. If you do, please support this channel on Patreon. It's patreon.com/gaminginthewild. You can join for $1 a month and get behind-the-scenes extras, Discord access, and a lot more besides. And with that, I hope you enjoy the interview. Here it is. Yeah, so I'm super happy to be joined by AP Thompson, the co-creator of Consume Me, and the, I guess, primary creator on a Titanium Court, which has just come out as we are speaking yesterday. So I guess like that the last day for you must have been quite a whirlwind. How are you feeling at this moment?
I'm feeling surprisingly better than earlier in this week, because I had several interviews lined up for this week, and about 5 minutes into the first one on Monday, I was like, wait a minute, my throat feels very sore. And it was, I guess I was feeling the first symptoms of a pretty nasty cold that I think I'm finally on the other side of. So, yeah, it's a great time for that to happen. Like, yeah, right when I actually need to use my voice on a regular basis. So having lots of vocal rest in between various different interviews. But feeling better now. So I guess if you're experiencing a nasty cold, may I recommend launching a video game on Steam.
Yeah, I can only imagine what it's like. I mean, people work on games for years and like hone them, test them, and sand them, and like it's just such a complex process. Like actually releasing one, especially for a solo developer or a small team, into the world just seems like an unimaginable sort of leap of faith to me. So, but the reviews have come down well for Titanium Core. It's on 85 on Metacritic. The internet seems to be interested and loving it. So I guess, how do you feel one day after Titanium Court has come out? How has it been for you?
It's been gratifying to see that people really, really enjoy it. I don't know. It's like I spent years looking at this thing very, very closely, and you probably hear a lot of developers say this, but you kind of can't really tell if it's good or not by the time it comes to release it. And so it's nice that people are reacting so positively to it, because I can be like, oh, good. I didn't just, numb myself into believing that this might be an okay thing, and like other people maybe agree a little bit.
And so you were working on it for several years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the first prototype was late 2019. I did it for a game jam. It was for a Ludum Dare back then, and I kind of put it on the shelf for a few months after that. And in early 2020, I had this whole time I had been working on Consume Me. I started working on that in 2018, and I had always had side projects. And in early 2020, the side project that I was working on was going just fine, but I was kind of like, well, this actually seems very highly scoped, and like it'll take a very long time to complete. And this other game, Titanium Court, I think I can just knock this out in a year. It'll only take like a short amount of time. And that was about 6 years ago. I got a little more than 6 years ago. So my estimate may have been off by a little bit, but
a little bit. Yeah. It's a really interesting game. I've been playing it for a couple of days. I've got about 8 hours in it so far. For people who haven't played, I'm going to try and describe the game, and then I'm going to bounce it over to you and see how I did. So it's a surreal narrative game was the first phrase that I came up with for it. It's a bizarre comedy play in which you are player and audience. It's a match 3 RTS mashup. You've described it as a match 3 tower defense game for people who love to read. And seeing as you are here, I wonder if you'd like to take a swing at like a contemporaneous description of what the game is to you at this moment in time.
Oh yeah, I mean, more recently I've been going with it's a perfectly good book, ruined by its association with the wretched computer. I don't know if that really covers all the bases, but I think it maybe captures the spirit of it a little bit. I've also referred to it as a surreal strategy game for clowns and criminals. Um, it
Good,
kind of
that's
is
a
a
good
game
one. I
that's
like that one.
fundamentally hard to describe because it is so many different things at once. And I've also something I've mentioned as well is that if I just try to describe it to people in mechanical terms, like kind of like, oh, it's like a match three and it's also a tower defense and this is how it is to play it. I have noticed a pretty direct correlation with me describing it that way and with the person who I described it to then proceeding to skip all the text. And I'm like, okay, well,
Right.
I know that is the gamer way. That's kind of like the habits at work here. But also, I don't know. That text is kind of it might be a part of the game too. So maybe I should find a better way of describing this.
Yeah, I mean, a game that came to mind for me whilst playing it actually was Inscription, which was sort of misdescribed as a deck builder. And like as I was playing it, I felt that it was a narrative game that used deck building elements to deliver its story. It was like a heavily aesthetic game as well, but you really are coming through a narrative arc with various game mechanics that come along to you at a certain time. And it felt to me that Inscription was perhaps more of a story game than a deck builder in some ways, although there was a very competent deck builder in there. And Titanium Court feels a little similar to me. It's almost like a little bit of sleight of hand. You're going to get a very strange, surreal, mashed up comedic story that is going to spin you around a little, and you're going to play a fun game as you're doing it. So yeah, I can see why it's a hard one to describe to people for that reason.
Yeah, it's an elaborate ploy to trick gamers into reading my book. I think that's
I like that one too. You got a lot of good. You got a lot of good one-liners about this game. So the game has a very distinctive color palette. It has I think it has four colors, maybe hot pink, midnight blue, what looks like midnight blue to me, like a real bright turquoise shade, and bone or beige. And it's a very specific vibe. I noticed when I was looking on Steam that your last game, Fortune 499, or at least a prior game, uses exactly the same color palette. I wonder if you could tell me how you arrived at that.
Oh yeah. Well, this is kind of funny. So I guess I'll start with I really like working with a limited number of colors. I am not a visual artist by training by any means, maybe by practice at this point, but certainly not by training. And something that I always struggled with when I was attempting to do visual art in the past was picking between different colors because often Jenny, who I worked with on Consume Me, used to make fun of me for not really being very great at picking colors that go together. So I figured one way of solving that was to just choose some colors that I know they go well together and just stick to those. Don't have any other colors. Don't worry about it. I only have about 4 or 5 to pick from, so it's kind of hard to go wrong. As for these specific colors, well, I kind of stole them from Downwell, actually, which was
Hmm.
a old. I don't know how many folks are familiar with this, but this was. It's weird to refer to Downwell as an old game at this point because I think it is only kind of 10 years old. Although I don't know, I guess that is maybe old by most people's standards, but it still feels fresh in my mind. But this was a classic mobile game, and it also has a very limited color palette. But in Downwell, they actually let you choose from like one of I think something like 20 different palettes. And I at the time I was figuring out that I wanted to work with a limited color palette, and so I just went through all the palettes in Downwell and chose my favorite one. So that was kind of how those colors ended up being chosen.
Yeah, and it has like an oddly fitting sort of theatrical feel. I think like the pink is almost like a theater light. The midnight blue and the is almost like a kind of velvet curtain or something. It seems to have like a theater vibe to me that sits really well with Titanium Court.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't choose the colors for that reason, but if they work out that way, then that's great because then it can intersect with some other themes that are going on in the game.
Absolutely, because as well as being visually distinctive, it is It has a strong vibe in the writing as well. Like the player is like a random person who discovers the titanium court and is immediately made queen. They are surrounded by courtiers who are schemers and weirdos and randoms who some look like sort of 1950s business people. Some there's like a theme of sports people, like baseball and soccer mixed in there as well. There are sort of a Humphrey Bogart sort of feel to some of the little visual portraits too. It's like a sort of day glow, Midsummer Night's Dream kind of vibe to it. Um, and there's nothing else quite like this. I was wondering, like, to select an angle to come at it from. Like, was this a complete vibe that you felt and had in your mind from the outset, or is this something that was constructed brick by brick and is just sort of what happened?
I think it's probably the latter one. I think it was just kind of like the game was developed piece by piece, and as I was developing it and putting more things in, I started to become aware of like, hey, there's some themes here, and maybe I should lean into those more and kind of pull them in more and more. Um, so yeah, I think there was it definitely the final form did not exist in my head when I began working on it, but it slowly came together.
Right, and what was that? What was that journey like? Like as I was saying, it's got sports stuff, it's got theatre stuff, it's got sort of existential dialogue and surrealism in there. Like, what was the road like to getting to that point?
I mean, I guess it was kind of the context in which I was developing this feels like it plays a huge role in how it actually came together. So part of that context is that this was a side project while I was working on Consume Me full time. So I did not have necessarily a lot of time to work on it. It would be like I could spend maybe 40 minutes a day on it, maybe spend some weekends. And then Jenny and I had this arrangement where we would work on Consume Me for 4 weeks, and then we would spend a week working on other projects and then go back to Consume Me for 4 weeks. So Titanium Court was the project that I would spend my week off from Consume Me working on generally.
Mm.
And all of that was taking place at the start of 2020, which, if you may remember, was a lot of other things were going on around then. So I think there was just a lot of like, I don't know, that was a strange time to be interacting with the world. And I think it was kind of a lot of the ideas were born out of the sort of weird, distant feelings that kind of emerged out of lockdown and isolation.
Yeah, I can kind of sense that actually. Now that you say it, there's almost a sense of mania in the game, like of things being unsure, things that maybe and everything being questionable. Like even things that seem obvious become questionable. Like, is this place real? Like, how do I get out? These are feelings that seem to be in the game, and that does vibe with lockdown emotions for sure.
Yeah, and it's I mean, in terms of like it's constantly presenting the player with like here's an object and then giving them like several different things that object might be or several different ways of thinking about that object. I think it tries to present each idea and then have like multiple interpretations associated with that idea. It's kind of like trying to pull the player into a kind of dream logic or a kind of alternate reality way of viewing the world. And I think
Mm.
that kind of that intersects with the idea of it being a fairy story. I think quite nicely. I think that was one of the primary inspirations for like, oh, I want this game to be about fairies. Was this feeling of I want there to be a space where I can explore strange ideas from different angles. And yeah, I think that's a big part of like how that all came together.
Yeah, it's funny that you said that. Like, Midsummer Night's Dream like came to me quite early as like I don't know if it's a reference point for you, but in terms of vibe, like the play about like I guess Shakespeare's fairy story, it somehow had the same vibe almost immediately. I think there's something in it's been a while since I saw it or read it, but I think there's something in like a sense of sort of whimsical play where people just kind of say something and then counter it completely, or it's almost like kicking a story down the road and seeing where it goes or something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at how Midsummer Night's Dream, the events that take place, like what they must have felt like to some of the principal, I guess, mortal characters in that story, it's like, Oh, that definitely feels like a very strange hallucinatory fever dream that maybe occurred. Or, if you've ever tried a psychedelic, then maybe it feels similar in that way, right? Like you can definitely imagine uh, of contemporary people going out to the woods and having an experience not unlike that. Um, yeah, I think there's certainly an entire atmosphere to it.
The mashup of the people that you meet as well, like the pixel portraits are really cool, and they're really like specific frames. It got me wondering a little bit, like looking at the characters and the sort of moments that are captured in the frames that you of the people that you meet, the portraits. Like I did wonder, like you can almost envision like a pinboard that's got pictures of 50s film stars and like 80s baseball players and like Wall Street extras, or like I wonder what the visual the vibe that you're pulling from and the sources of some of those pictures, are they directly lifted from like photographic portraits and source material, because they have that feeling.
Yeah, they do come from a lot of photo reference. I think, in particular, stock photos is like a big source of where a
Mm.
lot of that kind of reference comes from, right? So, and it's funny because stock photos themselves are like their own aesthetic realm, right? And you talk about like the characters look like they're kind of dressed from the 50s and stuff. And well, I think a big part of that is that stock photos still look like that, even though it hasn't been the 50s for over 70 years or whatever, right? Um, there's just still that feeling behind a lot of like stock photography. So I think that's like a big part of where that visual language comes from.
Yeah, and finally, a games industry question for you.
Mhm.
Like the games industry is going through a lot of stuff, right? We read about it a lot. It's a little bit like when there's an economic disaster and like you sort of reading this like intense, shrill stuff in the news, and you look out the window expecting to see like pillars of fire sweeping, and it's just like a normal day. But the games industry is going through something a little bit similar to that. Um, Maybe in the big business end of things. I don't know how that comes downstream to people like yourself, but Titanium Court seems to belong in like a quadrant of gaming where the cool stuff happens. It is like the place where the inscriptions and the maybe like the immortalities and the consumies, they seem to come from a real specific quadrant of gaming that is concerned with art and concerned with like creative process, and is perhaps the most sort of interesting part of games. And so good art is still being made through games and hopefully supported through by players so it can continue and catching people's attention. You seem to have come very much from like almost like a specific scene that's been very rich in recent years. I wonder how you feel about all of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is something I was talking about earlier as well, where people talk about the games industry, and it's weird to feel like, at least from my position, like it feels almost like I'm looking at it a little bit from the outside, like definitely on the edges of it, because it's like this model of game development that I've been working in is very, very small teams. In the case of Titanium Core, it was like primarily me for the majority of the development, and then eventually I signed with a publisher, and I've got like a team to help me out with production and marketing, and I hired Jess Haskins as an editor to help edit the text for the game as well. So it's not entirely me in the final product, but still just a very, very, very small operation. It feels so, it almost feels like a different industry than teams of like 50 to 100 to thousands of people, which is a lot of where we're seeing the industry collapsing at the moment. Or we see a lot of those people losing their jobs due to just like kind of incomprehensible decisions from upper management in a lot of places. And it, yeah, it's definitely one of those things where nothing, it hasn't really reached, I guess, my position in the same way. But also I'm like kind of, I feel like that might just be survivorship bias in that way, right? Where it's
Mm.
like partly like, I guess, I certainly hear from other people that funding opportunities have dried up in the small indie space, right? So it's like it's not like it is not reaching this part of the industry. I think it's maybe I've just been lucky that I've managed to dodge that thus far. Like Jenny and I got our funding for
Mm.
Consume Me back when funding was plentiful for everyone. It was like in 2018, and we kind of just rode off of that while we finished Consume Me and while I was developing Titanium Court as well. And by the time Consume Me was done, Titanium Court was very nearly done. So it was pretty attractive to publishers at that point in terms of like, there's not a lot of risk associated on the development end because the game itself is like kind of finished at this point, right? So I was able to like sign a publishing deal without too much trouble. And I think that that's just kind of like that is a variety of circumstances that is not going to be true for most people, right? It's like for most people, they can't just develop the game off of the back of money that they got in when money was plentiful and available for relatively easily compared to right now, right? So I don't know, it's sort of like, yeah, it's one of those things where I think that wonderful work is going to continue to be made. Like people are going to continue to make incredible games and incredible art. I think the thing that's like a massive bummer right now is that like it's hard to imagine the number of people who previously had jobs in the industry, them all being supported, right? Because it's like the the model that I'm talking about of like very, very small teams, I don't think it scales to the number of people who were previously working in the larger parts of the industry. Like I don't think that, I think if like every individual person who has been laid off in the past couple of years decides they're going to go be a solo dev, I doubt that's going to work out. I don't think that that's going to work out for everybody. I think that that's just, which is kind of, I don't know. It's like it is a bummer to see like what previously existed as a career path kind of just like being massively downsized in this way, right?
Mm.
And yeah, I don't know. I certainly don't have any answers in that way. I would like us to find a way forward from that. It might look like some of the smaller indies scaling up with a focus on stability, right? That might be part of it, but the or sustainability is maybe the word I was looking for, not necessarily stability, although they kind of mean the same thing. But that's also difficult, right? I would also attribute the fact that like I was able to do what I was able to do mostly due to the fact that I did not scale up, right? So it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You got a weird little paradox there. Yeah, I think it's a rough
Yeah.
time for a lot of people out there.
Yeah, and there is a feeling like when you see projects like Despelote, which I think you were like close to or involved in, Consume Me, and like
I mean, I know Julian. I'm friends with Julian, but I wasn't directly involved in Despelote in any way.
right, but there's like a scene, and like I think it was I talked to the guys that made the game Ultros in Sweden and published through Kepler, and they were like a little art collective and knew each other from way back. Maybe this, like, people that have got like a sensibility and sort of band together in small gangs and try and make something that draws from all of their creativity and kind of push that through. There is like a specific vibe that I'm sort of circling around, and it seems like your games are perhaps like of that type, right? Like a small team, artistically led games.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in New York, at least, there is kind of a lot of small teams around this scene. We kind of like we're all familiar with each other and we all know each other and like hang out occasionally. I think a lot of us, if we are associated with the NYU Game Center in one way or another, both Jenny and I used to be students there, and then we taught there for a little bit. And I think Julian from Despelote also was a student at the NYU Game Center. Um, the developers of Baby Steps were both associated with the Game Center as well. So there's like
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of this around New York at least, and it does feel like it would be nice if every major city in the world had a thriving scene in a similar way, right? I think that that kind of thing is really fun, and I think it's also really fun when scenes from different cities have very distinct, I guess, like vibes and identities to them. I think that's also really
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Yeah, I think it'd be really cool to get like a lot of local scenes going.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about the New York connection. I guess like is Sam Eng a part of that as well, right?
Yeah, Samming
Skate Story.
Skate Story. I don't think Sam was ever a student or teacher at the game center, but Sam has been around for sure and hung out with Sam several times. I think Sam is
Hmm.
primarily associated with Gumbo, which is like a development collective that exists in the city. We have a few of them around here. We've got that one, and then we've also got Boshi's Place, which is kind of almost a successor to Baby Castles, which I'm not sure if Baby Castles ever officially ceased operations or if they're just on hiatus right now. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with them, but a lot of the same people are also involved in things like Boshi's Place at the moment.
It's funny. It sounds like it's reminding, like the way that you're speaking is making me think of like the London like music scene of the 00s or something with like labels and venues. It's almost got that vibe of a scene basically.
Yeah, yeah, I would say so. And there are specific venues associated with the scene. Like Boshi's Place has a physical location where they hold events and do stuff like that. There are places
Hmm.
like Wonderville, like which is a indie game arcade bar, which we've got here, and the game center as well is definitely one place, and Gumbo is another place. So yeah, we've definitely,
Hmm.
I don't know, it's cool, and I think the music comparison is appropriate because that's we've also got that going on in New York as well.
Well, it sounds like a really rich scene. It seems to be producing a lot of great games. Titanium Court is another one that has come from there. Congratulations on getting the game out. Seems to be going really well, and I hope it does roll well for you. And it's been really good to talk to you here on the day after it came out and to find you in good spirits. So, like, congratulations on the reception for it, and I hope it goes really well for you.
Great, yeah, thank you so much.
So there we have it. That's the developer interview with AP Thompson, the maker of Titanium Court. Thanks very much to AP for making the time to hop on. It was a really fun conversation, really fun to talk about game development more generally and the New York game development scene as well. I'm still playing Titanium Court. I'm now 10 hours into it, and it's still unfolding in the most interesting way. At the time of this interview, I'd only played a little bit of it, and the game really does just keep changing and evolving and doing the most interesting things. It is a fascinating game, so I heavily recommend that you give it a try. That's Titanium Court. If you enjoyed the interview and you're still listening right here at the end, then please give the video a like. You can subscribe to the channel for more like this in your feed, and there is of course the Patreon if you would like to support me in all of the work that I do and all of the content that I create for you. It's patreon.com/gaminginthewild. You can join for as little as $1 a month. The $1 tier gets you into Discord, the $3 tier gets you behind the scenes content, the $5 tier gets you a free code for an indie game that I have hand selected for new patrons, and the $10 tier gets you a shout out on every single video and podcast. So special thanks to my boss tier patrons King Champ, Susanna Maria, Drelesh, Reistic Studies, Nate, and Noah. That's it for this video. See you on the next one.